Hello, and thank you for tuning in. I'm James Cleveland.
And I'm Emberly McCullough.
Tonight we have a special episode on voluntary charities and two special guests, Don Primrose of the 100 Night Shelter.
Hello.
And Amanda Bouldin of Shire Sharing.
Hi.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in.
All right, there are several voluntary charities around the country. One of these is called the Liberty House, run by Katie McCall in Los Angeles.
The Liberty House was established to provide housing to those in need. They believe in volunteerism and mutual aid. The home is a rental, and plans were to eventually purchase it and use the land around it to grow their own food and keep chickens. But they are now looking to leave the hostile environment of Los Angeles, which has sent men with badges onto the property in the last 6 months.
The plan is to relocate to New Hampshire and join up with other like-minded voluntarists involved in the Free State Project to expand this vision and provide housing, not just for those needing housing assistance, but also to those who need short-term or end-of-life medical care or rehabilitation.
Right now, there are 3 families living there. Katie and her 2 children, a single mother felon who was convicted of helping someone give birth without a license, an ex-Army veteran who left the Army injured and was forced to sign papers that relinquished all her benefits to escape a system she didn't believe in, her 9-month-old child, and a couple who have been fighting defects and their unlawful removal of their 7 children.
Yeah, this is a good thing that's happening out in Los Angeles, and it's terrible that armed thugs are coming over to the Liberty House and trying to arrest these people. And what Katie is doing there is fantastic. She sent me a lot of information that unfortunately I wasn't able to fit into just a 28-minute show. I could have done a whole 28-minute show just on her information that she sent me, but she is the sole breadwinner for this Liberty House, and all the other people that live there, the couple and then the lady, they pitch in to keep the house running and watch the kids. And Katie's having a hard time because like we stated, she is a convicted felon for helping a woman give birth without a license. So it's just one way that the state intrudes on people and not letting people have babies without having a license.
Yeah, it's really shocking that the Los Angeles government would choose this charity as a thing that they'd want to go after and actually try to get these people in trouble and possibly even arrest them. And it's really sad that that's the case.
It is. And the fact that Katie has plans to move this charity here to New Hampshire is a fantastic idea because, we do need things like this. And I'm not sure if many people are aware, but Clyde Voluntarist out in North Carolina just bought a house here in Keene, and he is planning on building something like what Katie's doing out in Los Angeles. And it's mainly to help people, that are in need and severe need and planning on helping people who have end of life issues and like a hospice kind of thing.
Yeah, I heard another story out of Southern California. This gentleman was operating the charity where he provides marijuana to medical cannabis users. Mm-hmm. And he does it free of charge. He accepts donations.
Right.
And he was taking marijuana to the clinic that he donates it. And he was pulled over and they found a pound of marijuana.
Wow.
And he was licensed to do this in California, but they arrested him anyway. And he was actually brought to court. And thankfully, one jury member actually refused to vote guilty.
Nice.
So it's a great example of jury nullification.
Jury nullification does work. That's another example of how jury nullification, is a very good way to stop the intrusion of government into your life. So that's fantastic. Another voluntary charity is called Free Aid.
Free Aid, that is FR33, was created to help liberty activists organize projects to educate people about the value of mutual aid and lessen the burdens of government. Their main activity involves providing voluntary medical and educational services at liberty-related events.
Their support functions include identifying medically skilled volunteers at events, providing first aid supplies and space to store them, providing educational materials, and facilitating networking among liberty-loving health professionals.
Free Aid provides first aid volunteers on a voluntary basis, and they do not charge for their services. They are an all-volunteer charity organization that's funded entirely by the generosity of donors. You can visit their website at www.fr33aid.com/donate to donate to them. They're not affiliated with any government. They're currently pursuing U.S. IRS recognition of nonprofit status. Now, as an accountant, it's very difficult to actually become a nonprofit. You have to do what's called 501c.
Right.
And that's a very lengthy project once you begin that.
It is. There are a lot of regulations that prohibit and tangle up people who are trying to start charity organizations. And it's difficult for these voluntary associations and charities to collect money from their donors, because then the IRS wants to get involved and tax them, especially if they don't have 501c3 status.
Yeah, it's a real shame too that the organizations, if charities are a good thing, and I think they are, it's a shame that the organizations have to spend valuable resources on, instead of helping people setting up their charity legally, they're spending valuable time and energy instead of helping the people that they're supposed to.
Right, and they tie up so much. If you look at an organization like the Red Cross, or even a lot of these organizations that are run by churches, like the Feed the Children and stuff like that, most of their costs are eaten up by administrative services. So very little of the money that you give them is actually going to the people that they are claiming to support. And what's nice about these voluntary charities is that most of the money is going towards the people that need it, and getting supplies for those people and doing that. And you should definitely go visit the Free Aid website. That's fr33aid.com, and donate to them, because they go to events all over the country. They go to PorcFest, Libertopia. Those are the two offhand that I know of that they've been at, and they do a wonderful job at PorcFest. I have not been to Libertopia, but they do a great job at PorcFest. They're staffing. I think they've got a staffing there like 24 hours a day, and somebody's there all the time to help, and they're there the whole week of PorcFest, which is great. All right.
Now let's turn to our guests, Don Primrose and Amanda Bouldin.
All right, and first we'll start with Don Primrose of the 100 Nights Shelter. Welcome, Don.
I do.
Great. Okay, so how long has the 100 Nights Shelter been operating?
The shelter opened January 5th in 2010, so not quite 3 years.
Wonderful.
And now, where do you get your funding for the shelter?
To this time, all our funding's been private donors. I funded myself the first year and a half, and since then it's by donations.
That is fantastic. Now, let's say that I wanted to donate some money to the 100 Night Shelter. How would I go about doing that?
The easiest way is to go to 100nights.org, and you could subscribe, a monthly subscription, or you can just hit donate. And we are a 501(c)(3).
Nice.
Great.
Do you accept alternative forms of exchange, like silver, gold, Bitcoin?
We'll take anything of value.
Okay.
And if you don't have that, you can also volunteer your time.
Wonderful.
Now, what is the vision and the mission of the 100 Night Shelter? Who are you trying to help, and why?
100 Nights has two different projects going on. They have 100 Nights Cold Weather Shelter, which shelters anyone who comes into the door. There's no restrictions, no requirements on who you are. We only ask that you're respectful and responsible for yourself, other guests, volunteers, and the facility. And then we have Open Doors Resource Center, which is open up to anyone in the Keene area. Last year we served just shy of 700 different people in that facility.
Wow.
That's wonderful. And what are your long-term goals for the 100 Night Shelter and the Open
Doors
Doors
Center.
Resource Center?
Long term, in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll have our own facility in Keene. Currently, we pay $30,000 a year rent,
Ouch.
and that's a huge hit. The resource center will be expanded. We're going to maintain it downtown. Something else that we do is that we do not duplicate any services in the city of Keene. So when we find holes, we fill those voids.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Now, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I believe that one year at Pumpkin Fest, you guys operated a booth and they were shut down. Would you go into what happened there?
Sure. Pumpkin Festival is a community celebration or a party. It costs close to $250,000 to put this festival on. And they charge vendors to come in and sell products, be it food or otherwise. And it's primarily geared, the vendors are supposed to be selling to nonprofits, to benefit nonprofits. We asked if we needed to get permission because we're alongside Main Street. We were told we did not have to get a permit. So we were selling directly outside the doors of our shelter. Police department came down by and shut us down. A couple of our volunteers were Free State members. They asked if they could reopen. They reopened. They were shut down. The last place I want to be is in Keene on that day. They called me. I came to Keene and reopened it by myself with the Keene police standing there and the state police and a SWAT team.
So the reason that they shut it down was because you didn't have the permit?
We didn't have a permit.
Okay.
That same day, they also shut down the Boy Scouts who were selling cotton candy. They did not have a permit. So.
Wow, that's completely ridiculous that you would have to have a permit as a nonprofit to stand out and sell items right outside the door. It's not like you're taking up any extra room that they have unavailable. I mean, you're right there on Main Street. I don't understand that.
Now, one idea I had, what is the operating budget of the 100 Night Shelter, let's say on an annual basis?
For 2013, it's $154,000.
Now, they just built a bridge called the North Bridge.
$2 million bridge.
Yes, it's $2.3 million. $100,000 of that was donated by local businesses. Like, I feel like a better use of that the funding would have been to pick local charities and give it, instead of building a bridge that I would argue was not really necessary.
I agree, but in doing so, then you would, as the city acknowledges a problem, and they don't believe there's a problem today with homelessness. So.
Now, yeah, one idea, this is from George Carlin. He said that the reason we'll never solve homelessness, there's no money in it. Like, let's say there's a war on drugs because there's so much money in, let's say, locking the people up, hiring more police officers. The problem of homelessness, there's really like no money to be made by government. So do you feel like that's possibly one reason that I feel like they choose to ignore it?
There is money in homelessness, at least keeping it quiet. There's a state law that the municipality or towns have to provide shelter for those without housing. That's a state law. So what most cities do, and the city of Keene does, they have an agency that takes care of the problem. In Keene, they provide 45 beds. And by doing so, they say there's no additional problem. It takes the voice away from the homelessness, from the individuals. January 26th this year, PATH, which is a federal agency, came into the Keene area and they did a point-in-time study. On that one day in the winter, they found 196 homeless people in the Keene area. So there's 196 homeless people in Keene, and there's 45 beds being provided. That's part of the issue. But you won't see that study unless you look it up. It won't be in the newspaper.
Right, they make it very difficult to find that information to, for people to highlight that there are things like that going on. And it just goes to show you that the government doesn't care about you. Now, if you, by some circumstance, lose your, most people are one paycheck away from homelessness. Just one paycheck. So if something bad happens, something medical happens, or you get into a car accident, you lose your job, any one of us could be homeless. And this is a real problem, and we're so glad that you're here in the Keene area doing something about it, because you don't just serve just Keene, you also serve surrounding communities, correct?
Correct. We serve entire Cheshire County, or anyone from, you can be from anywhere. There's no means testing. If someone's homeless and walks up to the door, you have a place for the night.
Nice.
There have been moves by some cities, Philadelphia, Orlando, that ban feeding the homeless in public. I was wondering if you had an opinion on that. That's kind of a current issue. Philadelphia just banned feeding the homeless.
Feeding the homeless in public.
Yes, in
Right.
public. They can
Right.
only be fed in private, I guess, in a building or something.
Well, I guess if you fed them on the street, you could actually do a count and people would see that there's an issue. So let's bury the issue and hide them away somewhere.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to turn to Amanda Bouldin of Shire Sharing. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you for being on the show tonight. So can you tell us a little bit about Shire Sharing and how long have you been operating?
Well, it started about a year ago for Thanksgiving in 2011, and just a bunch of ragtag activists throwing our money together to bring some people some food. That's basically it.
Awesome. And you guys just had your Thanksgiving dinner delivery last weekend, was that correct? So the
That's
18th
right, yeah.
and the 19th, you guys
Yeah,
were working on
17th
getting
and
that.
18th, yeah.
17th and the
Yeah,
18th.
the weekend before Thanksgiving.
And how many people did you serve?
Around 650.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is fantastic. And only your second year.
Yeah, last year we did like 170 people.
Nice. And where do you get your funding from?
Whoever wants to donate. I mean, social networking is the method that I use. So I just post on Facebook or the website. It gets shared a lot, and call in a Free Talk Live, and ask listeners for money and stuff like that. I have no idea why why we raised so much money. We raised almost $6,000 this year
fantastic.
just for Thanksgiving. Last year we slapped together about $1,000 over the span of 2 weeks, and this year we had $1,000 within a couple hours of
Wow.
initiating fundraising.
So the word really got out from what you did last
Yeah.
year. I know that I saw some videos from what you guys did last year and thought it was pretty fantastic. And you don't just deliver Thanksgiving meals. There's another program that you have as well, isn't there?
Well, last year we delivered backpacks to some homeless folks in Manchester. We did, I think, 52, but they weren't empty backpacks. We filled them with a lot of really useful stuff like blankets, hats, gloves, toothbrush, other personal hygiene stuff, and bus passes and some other things. And
Wonderful.
Mhm.
That's wonderful.
Now, where did you get this idea? Like, where is your motivation? What inspired you to do this?
my dad, actually, I'm from Dallas, and I moved here. September makes 3 years for me in New Hampshire. And last spring, April of 2011, actually on Easter, he died. He had cancer. He'd only been diagnosed with it a couple months prior, and he went through a couple rounds of chemo, and he was only 60. He was a really healthy guy. Like, his vice was coffee. Like, he was always like, I need to cut down on the coffee, like he never really was up to much bad stuff. And anyway, then all of a sudden, cancer, and I suggested medical marijuana, and he said, absolutely, we'll see. When we get there, we'll see. But I knew he'd be game. He grew up in the 60s.
That's
but,
awesome.
Anyway, so then he went through a couple rounds of chemo, and then he ended up checking out of the hospital and seeking an alternative treatment. But I guess part of chemo is you don't have an immune system after that. So
Right.
he, long story short, he got pneumonia, and he ended up dying from it. It was really quick. Like, he checked into the hospital on Friday, and by Sunday he was gone. But I was lucky enough to fly down there in time and be there with him. And anyway, my point being that for at least the last 10 years of his life, he did this every year in Dallas.
Wow.
And it was really important to him. And I think at its peak, it reached around 250 households.
That's
and
awesome.
we did almost 200 households this year.
That
And
is wonderful.
So he spent over 10 years working on it and roping in all his friends and networking and so forth to get people involved. And the best he did was 250. And we almost got there in just 2 years.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really great. So what are some of your long-term goals for Shire Sharing?
That's a tough call. I kind of take it one day at a time with this, because this year we had way more activists or volunteers than was really necessary in some aspects, and we actually had, I I think we had too much money. We ended up spending less than $4,000 of the total 5,500-ish that was raised. And what I'm going to do with that, I think I'm going to buy some silver and some Bitcoin and sit on it, and maybe do something for Christmas, because I expect that it's going to go up in value by then. But it's a tough call,
Right.
because there's so many things that the government is already providing to people that are easy to provide. Food is easy to provide, but what's hard to provide is, courage and self-confidence. Those are
That's
the things
very
that
true.
people that are in need are lacking, and I don't know yet how to do that. I'm not a social worker.
Well, that's one thing that makes New Hampshire and activists being here in New Hampshire is that you have a lot of people that you can draw from and get experience from. Now, I'm not a social worker either, but there might be somebody who was. We just have to put the word out there and
Yeah, it's all
brainstorm.
about networking, big
Right.
community.
Yes, the community. I mean, there's all kinds of people that if you just talk to them about voluntary charities and explain it to them, I think that they would really understand and kind of get that concept down. Now, you did have some trouble, didn't you try to get involved with some church organizations and to get names from?
Well, it was just a rocky road at the beginning. I had trouble finding people that wanted to work with us, and it was just because they already had similar programs in the works. But we ended up really grabbing Lutheran Social Services and Friends of Forgotten Children, because they were happy to have us in. Lutheran Social Services works with refugees. When they get relocated here, Lutheran helps them find jobs and stuff like that, and gives them job training and provides English classes. And basically they send a sign-up sheet around all of their English classes. And they're not receiving any other food like this from any other program, so it's really special for them.
Fantastic.
What is the best way to get in contact and to donate to your organization?
ShireSharing.org. Yeah.
Okay.
And you do accept any kind of
We take
monetary.
Bitcoin, silver, Federal Reserve notes, if that's your
Awesome.
thing. We raised around $500 worth of Bitcoin in
That's
donations
awesome.
this time around. Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
That is very, very cool. Bitcoin is a new and electronic form of
It's a virtual currency.
virtual
basically.
currency. I don't know very much about Bitcoin myself. It's on my to-do list to learn about Bitcoin. I'm just not that very familiar.
I think the website's like weusecoins.org, and
I think that
it's
is.
a huge learning curve, but it's pretty legit.
Oh, great.
Great investment.
All right, so now we'll just take some time and discuss. Do you guys know any other organizations that might need help in the local areas? I know you're in Manchester, you're here in Keene. Are there any other worthy organizations that you guys know of that might need a helping hand as well?
I heard the food bank's hurting real bad, but I don't know a lot about it.
I know lots of communities. I know I live in Peterborough, and there's about 5 or 6 different food banks available through some of the churches, and then the city does one on its own, and then the middle school takes in like personal hygiene items and then hands those out. I'm not too familiar with how Keene works, but there is the community kitchen, which is in downtown Keene, that provides hot meals. I believe it's 6 nights a week for people who don't have, who are lacking in funds for food, and for homeless people.
Yeah, Derek J. Volunteered there for a little while, and he said it's a great organization. So that's another fantastic charity that's local that you should definitely check out. And I encourage you to donate to.
Yes, and make sure that you're going to the100nights.org and checking out what Don Primrose is doing over there. And if you have the time, volunteer. He's going to need a lot of help with some of the stuff that he's doing. Providing beds and funding that $30,000 rent for a year.
Which is past due right now. So
Oh my.
that's,
Yep. I read that Dale, he now lives in Manchester, but he used to volunteer at the
Yep.
100 Night Shelter. I remember he posted something on Facebook that there was some financial difficulties facing the shelter. Could you go into that a little bit?
yeah, last week he made a post and he raised $1,200 in about 22 hours.
Wow. Go Dale.
That paid the the electric bill and a phone that was actually shut off for a day. The rent for November is still past due. So we're struggling, but it's day by day. Every day is a good day. We're still open, so that's. But there's lots of volunteer opportunities if you can't afford to donate. So.
Yeah, what kind of work would you do? Let's say I went and volunteered there. What would a typical...
Well, first we would have you fill out an inventory of what your skills are.
Okay.
And then you could be a special volunteer. You could do after-school reading programs. You could be doing first aid training. Somebody came in today who had a choice of paying a ticket for not having a license or going to jail, and the judge told them they had to do 10 hours of community service. So they filled out an inventory form, and they're a farmer and a musician. So they're going to come to our open mic on Sunday for a couple of weeks, and then they're going to redo our planters outside our facility.
Nice.
So I mean, there's all types of opportunities.
Right, and by volunteering, you can really, because you never know what talents you have. And specifically, I did an interview with Teresa Warmke a few months ago on a radio show that I was doing called Voluntarious Volunteers. And, you know, Teresa works with free aid, and she is not a medical person at all. And, you know, so we went into a lot of detail about how it doesn't matter if you have that specific skill, if you've never worked with the homeless or, you know, whatever, or you've never delivered meals or backpacks to homeless people, you always have a skill that you can use to help those who are less fortunate. So I suggest, I love doing volunteer work. It's very rewarding to help others, I think, and it makes me feel good to help others. So I recommend everyone go out and help these worthy organizations. They're definitely worth your time.
Did you guys hear about the thing in Jersey City?
I did not.
Now in the news, there's like this crazy mutual aid thing that sprung up out of nowhere, like on Facebook. And I guess Hurricane Sandy, there's still a lot of people without electricity, people that don't have food and can't go get it, and people that don't have, you know, they're living in freezing cold apartments. And some Facebook group started with like 30 people in it, and it's grown, I think, into the hundreds. And they just put out a blast on Facebook whenever somebody says, I need dog food for my dog, or I need, I need a jacket, and it happens.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Join us again next week for another installment of Shire TV. For more news and analysis, I'm James Cleveland.
And I'm Emberly McCullough. May you each find happiness, peace, and prosperity.